Hey everyone, Andrew from Team Bourbon. We're back with Jennifer Peters from Grapes and Grains for another Bourbon Speak. She'll discuss more in depth about her personal journey in the industry.
Was there a turning point in your life where you realized this was a passion for you? Yes, actually. I've been in the liquor industry for a little bit, and a friend of mine who was in the Army came back from overseas, and he was a big bourbon drinker, and so I was like, hey, it's your birthday, let's go to Kentucky. So we went up and we traveled around Kentucky in 2014 and got to meet several distillers, and being in the industry got a little spoiled. Got to meet Jimmy Russell. Love that man. He is an absolute legend in this industry and one of the sweetest old guys you will ever meet. And so he joined our tour because it had been snowing. And so he came and just walked around our tour with us. And you know, when you're hearing how someone decided to make something and the craftsmanship behind it, it really sets something apart. You know, when we went to Maker's Mark, again, we got spoiled and got to tour with Rob Samuels. And to hear my grandfather did this and my great grandmother did this, and you know, it ties it into family. But then when you go and you look at that, they started from scratch. They bought no whiskey from anyone else. So that means for 7 years they produced a product that they hoped would be what it was, not knowing if it was going to be what it was. But to think about investing 7 years into something, that is dedication, that is craftsmanship, and the whole trip left me a little more stunned, and I couldn't put anything other than ice in my whiskey after that. You know, before that it was like, yeah, I'll take a Jack and Coke, or I'll take a whiskey and Coke, and now I'm like, I'm never even gonna put water in that that's not filtered. So it made an impact when you see the artistry and the craftsmanship behind it. And so that was kind of a turning point, because I love learning about people who will invest time in things. And so when you see that it's time invested, it's a much cooler aspect, and then you get to see how much people just put into it. You feel guilty doing anything other than trying it straight, at least to start. So that was kind of a turning point where I decided it was what I wanted to study and learn a little more about. Hurdles I faced being a woman in the industry. Starting in liquor originally, I think people just expected me to be kind of a pretty face running a cash register, and people would be like, oh, there's a girl that works here. You know, this was back in mid-2000s when I started doing all this, and at first, you know, people they expect you to know wine. Of course they expect you to know wine, you're a lady. They don't expect you to know about vodkas and whiskeys and all the other aspects. So I think I surprise more people because, again, I love to learn. So I'm constantly learning new things about my products, about what's going on, because it's fun to me. And so then when I start to relay those things, it's different, because people are like, oh, you know, if I start talking whiskey, first of all, people are like, no, I know what I want. And then you're like, well, okay, but if you want this or this, and then they're like, okay, wait a minute. Well, what if I want this? Well, then you'll want this or this. And then once I start talking to people and they realize I know, they're like, okay, so tell me this, tell me that. Once they understand that you know what you're talking about, it's very easy. But building that first relationship, I think, is one of the harder parts. But that's with any customer. You have to build that trust in order to have someone know that you know what you're talking about in anything. Right. So I think now it's less of an aspect being a woman in the industry because it has grown that much. Early on, yeah, there's people like, yeah, you don't know this. It's all right. It's okay. You know, but I think once you just establish that you know things, people are much more willing to trust you in it. Are men intimidated by your knowledge of bourbon, whiskey, and the industry? Probably. I get a lot of people that are more shocked, I think, that I know as much as I do. But again, once you start talking and it's kind of an easy conversation, I think there's less intimidation and more wanting to learn. I love to learn, so I love to impart knowledge. Whether it's whiskey or, you know, baking a cake. If you got a question, ask. You know, I think people are more intimidated by confidence in things than they are about the actual aspect of the whatever it is you're talking about. And I'm confident when I talk about things because, again, I like to learn things, so I know what I'm talking about when I do things. So I think that can come off as intimidating, but to anybody, not just to guys. What is my current daily sipper? Can a rotating stock work?
Sure.
I tend not to do the same thing twice. I don't know if it's a daily sipper, but it depends on my mood. I do love Russell's 10. I think it's always going to be a beautiful product. It's got a great little rye content. It's not overly punchy. Some great layers of flavor for special days. Special days, I'll pull out some Dovetail just because it is an unexpected, really great bottle. It's not an everyday, but I do throw it in the rotation every now and then. I do love Nelson Brothers Reserve. It's got some beautiful sweet caramelization. You know, I bounce back and forth. I actually really love Fiddler's new Soloist from here in Atlanta, the SW. It's got a little hint of smokiness to it without being too dry. And it's a wheated base, so it doesn't have too much spice. So I kind of go from one end of the spectrum to the other, just based on my mood for whatever day I'm picking the whiskey. Some days I'll grab a rye, you know, it just depends on if you're feeling more spice, if you're feeling softer, if you're just wanting to chill, if you're hanging out by a fire pit, or if you're hanging out with friends. Have I ever considered having my own YouTube or podcast channel? People try to talk me into it a lot, but there is a lot of production behind it, and I currently don't have the time to dedicate to putting up a channel and maintaining it. But I do get asked that a lot. People are like, if you start one, I'll watch it. I get that, but I have a lot on my plate keeping our store running and making sure my customers get what they need, and I don't want to take time from that, as much fun as it would be right now, to do anything other than focus on that. So, have we ever considered giving classes on bourbon, how-tos, tasting profiles, and blind setups? That's a very good question. We actually have an event space at our other store that we've talked about being able to host some of those things. It's actually things we've talked about, but it's more something that we let outside groups do, because again, we are very busy, especially coming into the holiday season, just trying to make sure everybody can get what they want. We do occasionally do things outside for charities. We've done tastings before. We've done different things with neighborhoods where we'll set up and they'll buy the whiskeys and we'll come out and we'll help them do tastings. I've done stuff for charity guilds. I've done stuff for Johns Creek Business Association or the Chamber of Commerce. They used to do a tasting every year, and we would help with that. So it's more a class and more kind of an informal. Try these. This is what you're gonna taste. This is what you have here. What do you like? Kind of thing. Classes. People don't always sign up for classes, but they enjoy an experience. So I think we try to focus more on the experience over an actual teaching moment, but we do also do several in-store tastings throughout the year where we like to taste our single barrels, just to give people an option to try something before they buy. Are there any distilleries where you tried their product sight unseen? Yeah, there's a few I would. You know, if Old Forester put out something new, I'm always going to try it. Places that have established reputations or I know have a great master distiller, I'm going to try anything Jimmy Russell puts out at least once. It may not be my favorite thing, but if he puts out something new, yeah, I'm going to try it. Just because I know the quality he holds himself to. Bardstown is a newer one that I will try anything they have sight unseen at least once. Because they've built a reputation of quality whiskey. So when you build a reputation of some quality whiskeys, yeah, Woodford's done it, Michter's has done it, Four Roses has done it. You have a history of being able to give a quality product, so I think it's always a great option to try something new from that. It may not always be up your alley, but if they're putting out something new and you know they do quality, it's worth trying. Are there any distilleries you feel don't live up to the hype? Yes. Several. Not going to name names because I'm not going to disparage anybody's products, but yeah, there's several. You know, there's some that will come out on the market that immediately they want a $50 price point for a brand new whiskey that nobody's ever heard of. Maybe it's 2 years old, maybe it's 3 years old. It's young. It's not it's not established. People are very hesitant to try that because they know nothing about it. And if they try it and they're disappointed, they're never going to pick it up again. They try it and they love it, that's another thing. But untested, when it gets out, people get nervous. And so they tend to err on the side of caution. They don't want something they're going to hate. They don't want something they're not going to like. And there are some new ones that have come out in the market that think they're better than they are. I'll put it that way. There's some that come out with a blast and everybody buys the bottles and everybody's like, eh. It was okay. It wasn't great. Was it worth the hype? No.
Right.
But everybody wants to hype a new bourbon because it's new, it's different, it's something, and so it's hard to tell when there's so much hype behind it if it's hype just for hype's sake or if it's hype because people have actually started to taste it. And for the ones that are unestablished, I like to give them a month or two in the market before I'll pick up a bottle, unless I've had a sample of it, because then I get to hear what some of the people in the industry think about it, what some of the flavor profiles are, other than the description written up by the distillery. Because the distilleries will write up some beautiful descriptions, and sometimes the whiskey tastes nothing like it.
Exactly.
So it's a different. Like I said, if it's super hyped, I'm honestly usually a little cautious because whenever anything is super hyped, it never lives up to the hype.
Right.
You can only live up to so much, and if it's too much, you lose it.
Right.
Now, if you've built a reputation, for example, Short Barrel here in Atlanta, we've had 2 single barrels from them. The first one was started slow, and then somebody got a hold of it, and it went crazy. We had people in other states trying to buy it, and so when our second barrel was coming up, people got really excited. And we sold out very quickly. But thankfully, it's a product we've chosen. We knew it was quality, so it lives up to the hype. It matches up to our first barrel.
Right.
It's something we chose. So we get a history of good barrels or something like that. You're going to get quality when you have someone picking something for you. How many times a week do you get asked, do you have Blantons? I run out of fingers and toes every day. With a number of times somebody will ask me for that or something else allocated that, it's hard to get. Trust me, if I could make it in the back room and put it on the shelf, I would. But unfortunately, it's not something that we have control over. While everybody would love to have the product that everybody wants, and there is a lot of hype behind a lot of these products, and sometimes people have never had it, so they don't know what they're buying into. They don't know if they're going to like it or not. I've had people buy it and come back and be like, well, it was good. And I have people that are like, oh, it's my favorite thing on the face of the earth. I need to find it. Either way, we're limited by what we get. So I like making people happy, but we can't do it all the time. So yeah.
That was great.
Yes. I hope you guys enjoyed.